The transport ship landed on Kepler 438b with a loud rumble that shook the entire landing pad. Kim Dae pressed his face against the small window and watched the alien world spread out before him. The sky was purple, and 3 small moons hung in the daylight like pale stones. Strange rock formations jutted up from the ground like giant fingers pointing at the sky. "Welcome to paradise," said the pilot, a gruff man with gray hair. "Hope you brought your patience." "These aliens take some getting used to," Day picked up. His tool bag and stepped off the ship. The air was thick and smelled like metal and something sweet he could not name. His breathing mask felt heavy on his face, but he knew he needed it. The atmosphere here was not quite right for human lungs. The mining colony stretched out in front of him, like a small city made of metal and glass. Tall towers reached toward the purple sky, and he could see alien workers moving between the buildings. Some looked like walking crystals that caught the light. Others were tall and thin, with scales that shimmered green and blue. A few seemed to glow with their own soft light. "You must be the new engineer," said a voice behind him. Day turned to see a woman in a blue uniform walking toward him. She had short black hair and tired eyes. A badge on her chest read Lee Hanna, Security Chief. "Yes, I am Kim Dae," he said, bowing slightly. "I am here to fix the atmospheric processors." Lee Hanna looked him up and down. "Another human. The aliens are not going to like this. They think your kind is unpredictable. I just want to do my job," Day said quietly. "That is what they all say." She started walking toward the main building. "Come on, I will show you to your quarters. Then you can meet the administrator." As they walked through the colony, Day noticed how the different alien species kept to themselves. The crystal beings worked in one area, the scaled ones in another. None of them looked directly at him, but he could feel them watching from the corners of their eyes. "The tall ones with crystals are called Vorthok," Lee Hanna explained. "Are good workers but very strict about rules. The green-scaled ones are Scaleth. They're warriors by nature, so they handle security and heavy lifting. The glowing ones are Luminar. They're very smart and work with the computers." "What about humans?" Day asked. "We fix things that break," she said with a bitter smile. "That is what we are good at, they say. Fixing problems." They entered the main building through sliding doors. The inside was cooler and smelled like ozone. Alien writing covered the walls in patterns that hurt Day's eyes to look at. The ceiling was high, and strange lights hung down like jellyfish. "Administrator wants to see you," Lee Hanna said. "Name is Crystallix, is Vorthok. So speak clearly and do not waste his time." What? They rode an elevator to the top floor. The doors opened to reveal an office with walls made of some kind of clear material. Through them, Day could see the entire colony spread out below. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks covered in what looked like blue snow. Behind a desk, made of the same crystal material, sat the administrator. Crystallix was tall and thin, his body made of what looked like living purple crystal. Light moved through him in slow waves, and his voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. "So you are the human engineer," Crystallix said. His words were precise and cold. "I hope you are better than the last one." "What happened to the last one?" Day asked. "He left suddenly. Said the job was too dangerous." Crystallix's crystal body flickered with red light. "Humans have weak nerves, it seems." Day felt his face grow hot, but he kept his voice calm. "I'm here to fix the atmospheric processors. Can you show me what is wrong?" "The processors fail every few days. Repair them, but they fail again. The pattern makes no sense. Perhaps human insight will help." Crystallix stood up, his crystal body singing softly as he moved. "Security Chief Lee will show you the equipment. Right. But first, some rules." The administrator moved to the window and looked out at the colony. "You will work during day shift only. You will not go to the lower levels of the mining complex. And you will not investigate the disturbances." "What disturbances?" Day asked. Lee, Hanna, and Crystallix exchanged a look. The crystal being's light flickered nervously. "There have been some incidents," Crystallix said slowly. "Equipment damaged. Workers frightened. I believe it is just stress from the working conditions." "But some of the workers talk about other things," Lee Hanna added. They say there is. Something living in the old mining tunnels? Something that should not be there. Superstition, Crystallix said quickly.
Ow.
Ignore such talk. Focus on your work. But Day could see the worry in both their faces. Whatever was happening in the lower levels, it was real enough to scare them. Lehanna showed him to his quarters after the meeting. The room was small but clean, with a bed, a desk, and a small window that looked out over the mining pits. Strange alien plants grew in pots on the windowsill, their leaves changing color as the light hit them. Get some rest, Lehanna said. Tomorrow, you start work. And remember what the administrator said about the lower levels. That night, Day lay in his bed listening to the sounds of the colony. Machines hummed in the distance. Alien voices spoke in languages he did not understand. The wind outside made the building creak and groan. Then he heard something else, a sound that made his blood run cold. It started low and deep, like the growl of some massive animal. But as it continued, it became something else. Something that sounded almost like crying. The howl echoed through the colony for nearly a minute before fading away. In the silence that followed, Day heard doors slamming and voices calling out in alarm. Whatever was making that sound, it was close. He got up and looked out his window. In the distance, he could see lights moving in the lower levels of the mining complex. Security teams with bright flashlights were searching the shadows between the buildings. As he watched, the howl came again. This time it sounded different. Not angry or threatening, but lonely, like something calling out for help in the darkness. Day pressed his face against the cool glass and stared into the night. Tomorrow he would start his work on the atmospheric processors. But tonight, he found himself wondering what kind of creature could make such a sound, and why it sounded so sad. Day woke up the next morning to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed outside his window, and he could hear voices shouting in different alien languages. He quickly got dressed and ran outside to see what was happening, in the main courtyard. A crowd of workers had gathered around something. Day pushed through the group and saw deep claw marks scratched into the metal wall of the power station. The marks were huge, each one longer than his hand and carved so deep they went through the thick metal plating. It came during the night, said a scaleth worker named Talon. His green scales were pale with fear. The beast from the lower levels. It grows bolder. What did security find? Asked another worker. Lehanna stood near the damaged wall with her scanning device. No blood, no tracks, just appeared and disappeared like smoke. She looked up at the gathered crowd. Everyone. Back to work. We will handle this. As the workers scattered, they moved closer to examine the claw marks. They were strange. Too clean and precise to be made by an animal, but too organic to be made by a machine. He ran his fingers along the grooves and noticed something odd. Faint blue glow clung to the edges of the cuts. Interesting, is it not? Said a voice behind him. Day turned to see Crystallix approaching. The administrator's crystal body was flickering with nervous purple light. The marks are very precise, Day said. Almost like they were made by someone trying to communicate. Communicate. Crystallix's light flashed red. Engineer Kim, you have been here one day. Do not think you understand what we deal with. Creature is dangerous. It has terrorized our workers for months. Has it actually hurt anyone? Day asked. Crystallix was quiet for a long moment. No, but fear is enough. Fear makes workers leave. Fear makes them make mistakes. Fear costs us money. That afternoon, Day began his work on the atmospheric processors. The machines were located in the mid-levels of the colony, between the living quarters above and the mining tunnels below. Each processor was the size of a small house, filled with pipes and filters that cleaned the air for the colony. The first processor he checked was working fine. The second one had a small leak in one of the pipes, but the third processor was completely dead. When he opened the access panel, he found the control circuits had been carefully removed. Not ripped out or damaged, but disconnected with surgical precision. Strange, he muttered to himself. Who would do this? He spent the rest of the day repairing the damaged systems. As he worked, he noticed something odd. The failures always happened in the processors closest to the lower levels. The ones furthest away never had problems. That evening, Day sat in the colony cafeteria, eating dinner with some of the other workers. The food was bland but filling, some kind of protein, paste that tasted like chicken. Around him, aliens from different species sat at separate tables, speaking in quiet voices. "The beast struck again last night," said a luminary worker named Lightbringer. Her soft glow dimmed with worry. "It damaged the water purification system. I had to shut down 3 sectors for repairs. Someone should hunt it down," growled a Scaleth warrior. "End this once and for all." "Easy to say," replied a Vorthok engineer. "But how do you hunt something that can disappear into shadows?" Day listened to their conversation and felt more curious than afraid. Everything about this creature seemed wrong. If it was really a dangerous beast, why did it only damage equipment? And why did its howl sound so sad? After dinner, he went back to his quarters and studied the technical manuals for the atmospheric processors. He was looking for some pattern, some clue about why the failures were happening. But the more he read, the more confused he became. Around midnight, he heard the howl again. This time it was closer and lasted longer. Day got up and looked out his window. In the distance, he could see lights moving in the lower levels again. But this time, the howl seemed to be coming from directly below him. He grabbed his tools and a flashlight and quietly left his room. The corridors were empty, most of the workers asleep. He made his way to the elevator that went to the lower levels, but found it locked. A sign in several languages said authorized personnel only. Day had noticed something during his work that day. There was a maintenance shaft that ran between the levels. It was narrow and dark, but it would get him down to the mining tunnels. He found the shaft behind a storage room and squeezed inside. The metal walls were cold and damp, and strange sounds echoed from below. He crawled through the shaft for what felt like hours. Following the beam of his flashlight, finally he reached an opening that led into the lower levels. He dropped down into a dark corridor lined with old mining equipment. The air here was thick and smelled like earth and something else, something alive. His flashlight beam swept across the walls and caught something that made him gasp. More claw marks, but these were different. They formed patterns on the walls, almost like writing. They glowed with that same blue light he had seen earlier. As he followed the marks deeper into the tunnels, he heard a sound that made his heart race. Footsteps, or something like footsteps. They were soft and careful, moving just ahead of him in the darkness. He turned a corner, and his flashlight beam fell on something that made him freeze. A massive shape huddled in the shadows, partially hidden under a pile of fallen mining equipment. It was bigger than a man, with smooth dark skin that seemed to absorb light. Multiple eyes glowed softly in the darkness. Long tendrils moved slowly like underwater plants. But what shocked him most was not the creature's appearance. It was the fact that it was trapped. A heavy metal beam had fallen across one of its appendages, pinning it to the ground. The blue glow he had been seeing was coming from a wound where the beam had cut into the creature's flesh. The creature saw him and made a sound. It's not a growl or a roar, but something soft and questioning. Its eyes were intelligent and filled with pain. It was not the monster everyone feared. It was hurt and scared, just like any trapped animal would be. Day slowly approached, keeping his hands visible. "Hey there," he said softly. "You are hurt, are you not?" The creature's eyes followed his movement, but it did not try to attack. Instead, it made that same soft sound again. It's almost like it was trying to communicate. Day knelt down beside the trapped appendage and examined the beam. It was heavy, but if he could find the right leverage point, he might be able to lift it. He looked up at the creature's face. "I am going to help you," he said, "but you have to trust me." The creature's eyes seemed to understand. It stopped moving and waited, watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. Day had found the beast that terrorized the colony, but all he saw was a frightened creature that needed help. Day worked for 2 hours to free the creature from the metal beam. His hands were cut and bleeding by the time he managed to lift the heavy piece of equipment enough for the creature to pull its injured appendage free. The moment it was released, the creature moved away from him, pressing itself against the far wall of the tunnel. "It is okay," Day said softly, sitting down on the ground to make himself seem less threatening. "I am not going to hurt you." The creature watched him with its multiple eyes. Up close, Day could see that its skin was not completely dark. Patterns of blue light moved beneath the surface like slow lightning. The injured appendage was bleeding that same blue fluid, and the creature kept touching the wound carefully with another tentacle. Day reached into his tool bag and pulled out a bottle of water. He opened it and took a small sip, then held it out toward the creature. "Are you thirsty?" The creature tilted its head, studying the bottle. After a long moment, it extended one of its smaller tentacles toward the water. The tip touched the liquid, and the creature's eyes brightened. It gently took the bottle and drank deeply. "You understand, do you not?" Day said, amazed. "You know what I am doing?" The creature finished drinking and carefully set the bottle down. Then it did something that surprised Day even more. It reached out with one tentacle and lightly touched his injured hand. The touch was gentle, almost caring. "You were worried about me," Day realized, "just like I was worried about you." Over the next few days, Day established a routine. During the day, he worked on the atmospheric processors and attended meetings with the other colony workers. At night, he would sneak down to the lower levels to visit the creature. He learned many things about his new friend. The creature was highly intelligent, able to understand simple words and gestures. It was also curious, always wanting to examine the tools and equipment Day brought, but most importantly, it was lonely. Day could see it in the way the creature's eyes would light up when he arrived, and how sad it looked when he had to leave. "Need to call you something?" Day said one night as he cleaned the creature's wound with medical supplies he had taken from the colony's first aid station. "How about Nuri? It means world in my language." The creature's skin flickered with soft blue patterns when he said the name. Day took this as acceptance. "Nuri it is then," he said with a smile. As the days passed, Day began to understand that Nuri was trying to communicate with him. The patterns of light under its skin would change depending on its mood. Blue meant calm or happy. Red meant worried or afraid. Purple meant curious or confused. But the most amazing discovery came during his 5th visit. Nuri had been watching Day work on a broken scanner, and suddenly the creature reached out and touched one of the loose wires. The scanner immediately came to life, working perfectly. "How did you do that?" Day asked, staring at the device. Nuri's skin pulsed with what Day had learned was its version of happiness. The creature touched the scanner again, and this time Day could see small sparks of energy flowing from its tentacle into the machine. "You can control electricity," Day said, in wonder. "That is how you have been damaging the equipment. But you are not trying to hurt anything. You are trying to fix it." This revelation changed everything. The atmospheric processors were not failing because of poor maintenance. They were failing because the colony's power systems were damaging something deeper in the planet. And Nuri was trying to repair the damage, working at night when no one would see. "What are you protecting?" Day asked. Nuri seemed to understand the question. It moved to one of the tunnel walls and pressed its tentacles against the rock. The stone began to glow with soft light, and Day could see something incredible. Behind the wall was a vast network of crystal formations, stretching deeper into the planet than he could see. "It is beautiful," Day whispered. Nuri's skin pulsed with warm colors, and for a moment, Day felt a strange sensation in his mind. Images flashed through his thoughts. He saw the crystal network as it truly was, a living system that connected every part of the planet. He saw how the mining operations were disrupting this system, causing imbalances that threatened the entire ecosystem. "You are the guardian," Day said, understanding finally dawning. "You are trying to protect your world." But their peaceful meetings could not last forever. On the 7th night, as Day was showing Nuri some pictures on his tablet computer, they heard footsteps echoing through the tunnels. Multiple sets of footsteps, moving quickly and purposefully. "Someone is coming," Day said, quickly packing up his equipment. "You need to hide," but it was too late. The sound of voices grew closer, and Day recognized one of them. Park Jun, the mining foreman, was leading a group of workers through the tunnels. "The human has been coming down here every night," Park Jun was saying. "I have been watching him. He is up to something." Nuri's skin flashed red with alarm. The creature began to move deeper into the tunnels, but its injured appendage made it slow and clumsy. Day knew they would be discovered within minutes. "Go," he whispered to Nuri. "Get out of here. I will handle this." But Nuri would not leave. Instead, the creature moved protectively in front of Day, its tentacles spread wide. For the first time since they had met, Nuri looked dangerous. Not because it wanted to hurt anyone, but because it was trying to protect its friend. The voices were getting closer. Day could see the glow of flashlights reflecting off the tunnel walls. In a few more seconds, Park Jun and his group would turn the corner and find them. "Please," Day said urgently. "I know you want to help me, but if they see you like this, they will think you are attacking me. Hey, they will try to hurt you." Nuri's eyes met his, and Day saw understanding there. The creature's skin pulsed once with blue light, and then it faded back into the shadows just as the search party rounded the corner. Engineer Kim Park Jun said, his voice cold with suspicion. "What are you doing down here?" Day stood alone in the tunnel, his heart pounding. Behind him, hidden in the darkness, he could sense Nuri waiting and watching. The creature trusted him enough to stay hidden, but Day knew this was only the beginning of their troubles. "I was investigating the power failures," Day said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I thought I might find some clues down here." Park Jun's eyes narrowed. "In the middle of the night? Alone? Without authorization?" "I could not sleep," Day said. "I thought I would do some extra work." The mining foreman stepped closer, studying Day's face. "You are lying. I've been watching you, Engineer Kim. Every night you come down here. Every night you stay for hours. What are you really doing?" Day felt sweat on his forehead, despite the cool air in the tunnels. Could not tell them about Nuri. They would not understand. They would see the creature as a threat, not as the intelligent being it truly was. "I am trying to solve the equipment failures," he said again. "That is what I was hired to do." Park Jun turned to the other workers. "Search this area. Look for anything unusual. If you find that creature, signal immediately. Do not try to approach it alone." As the search party spread out through the tunnels, Day hoped that Nuri was smart enough to stay hidden. Their friendship was about to be tested, in ways neither of them could have imagined. The search party spent 3 hours combing through the lower tunnels, but found nothing. Nuri had vanished completely, leaving no trace of its presence. Park Jun was frustrated and suspicious, but he had no proof that Day was doing anything wrong. "Is not over," Park Jun warned as they rode the elevator back to the upper levels. "I will be watching you, Engineer Kim. If you are hiding something, I will find out." Day nodded but said nothing. He was worried about Nuri and wanted to return to the tunnels as soon as possible. But over the next few days, he noticed that security had increased in the lower levels. Guards were posted at every entrance, and new cameras had been installed in the corridors. It was impossible to visit his friend. On the 4th day, Day was working on an atmospheric processor when he heard a commotion outside. Through the window, he could see workers running toward the mining pit. Quickly finished his repairs and went to investigate. At the edge of the pit, a crowd had gathered around something. Day pushed through the group and saw fresh claw marks on the mining equipment. But these marks were different from the ones they had seen before. They were angry and desperate, carved deep into the metal. It attacked during the day shift, explained a Vorthok worker named Prisma, right in front of everyone. "The beast is growing bolder? Did anyone get hurt?" Day asked. "No, but it came close." The creature appeared suddenly, damaged 3 excavators, and then vanished again. The workers are terrified. Day studied the claw marks and felt his heart sink. These were not the careful, precise marks that Nuri usually made. These were the work of a creature in pain and frustration. His friend was trying to communicate, but without Day there to understand. The messages were being misinterpreted as attacks. That evening, There was an emergency meeting in the colony's main conference room. All the department heads were present, along with several worried workers. Administrator Crystallix stood at the front of the room, his crystal body flickering with agitated red light. "The situation has become unacceptable," Crystallix announced. "The creature's attacks are increasing in frequency and boldness. It is only a matter of time before someone gets hurt." "What do you propose we do?" asked Lehanna. "We hunt it down," said a Scaleth warrior named Blade. "I have fought many dangerous beasts. This one cannot be much different." "But we do not even know what it is," protested Lightbringer, the Luminari worker. "How can we fight something we do not understand?" "It does not matter what it is," Blade replied. "It is a threat to our colony. Threats must be eliminated." Day felt sick to his stomach. He wanted to speak up, to tell them that Nuri was not a threat, but he knew they would not believe him. Without proof, his words would be meaningless. "I will organize a hunting party," Blade continued. "Yes! We will track the creature to its lair and end this threat once and for all." "What about capturing it alive?" Day asked suddenly. "We could study. It'd learn more about the planet's ecosystem." The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. Engineer Kim Crystallix said coldly, "You are here to fix machines, not to give advice about dangerous creatures. Leave such matters to those with experience." "But what if the creature is not really dangerous?" Day pressed. "What if it is just trying to communicate?" Park Jun stood up from his seat. "That is an interesting theory, Engineer Kim. Tell us. What makes you think this creature is trying to communicate?" Day felt trapped. He could not reveal his friendship with Nuri without putting the creature in even more danger. "The pattern of the damage," he said carefully. "It seems too deliberate to be random attacks." "Or maybe," Park Jun said with a cruel smile, "you know more about this creature than you are telling us." The room erupted in whispers and suspicious looks. Day felt the weight of everyone's stares and realized that Park Jun had been building a case against him. "I am just trying to think logically," Day said. "If we are going to solve this problem, we need to understand what we are dealing with." "The only thing we need to understand," Blade said, "is how to kill it." The meeting ended with plans for a hunting party to begin the next morning. Day left the room feeling desperate and helpless. He had to warn Nuri somehow, but with the increased security, it seemed impossible. That night, he lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside his window, he could see the lights of the security patrols moving through the colony. Every few minutes, the beam of a searchlight would sweep across his room. Around midnight, he heard a soft tapping at his window. He got up and looked outside, but saw nothing, and he heard it again. This time, he noticed that one of the alien plants on his windowsill was glowing softly. He opened the window and examined the plant more closely. Its leaves were pulsing with blue light in a pattern he recognized. It was Nuri's way of communicating. Happiness. Someone had touched this plant recently, and that someone was his friend. Day looked out into the darkness and whispered, "Nuri, are you there?" A shadow moved in the space between two buildings. For just a moment, he saw the familiar shape of his friend hiding in the darkness. "They are planning to hunt you tomorrow," Day said as quietly as he could. "You need to hide. Go deeper into the tunnels where they cannot find you." The shadow moved again, and Day saw one of Nuri's tentacles wave in what he had learned was the creature's way of saying goodbye. "Be careful," Day whispered. "Please be careful." The shadow vanished, leaving Day alone at his window. He closed it and returned to his bed, but sleep would not come. Tomorrow his friend would be running for its life, and there was nothing he could do to help. The next morning, Blade assembled his hunting party in the main courtyard. The group consisted of 6 Scaleth warriors, 2 Vorthok security officers, and several human technicians with tracking equipment. They were armed with energy weapons and carrying heavy-duty nets. "Remember," Blade told his team, "this creature is dangerous and unpredictable. Do not try to reason with it. Do not hesitate to use force. Our job is to protect this colony." Day watched from his office window as the hunting party disappeared into the lower levels. He tried to concentrate on his work, but his hands were shaking too badly to hold his tools steady. 2 hours later, the alarms started blaring. Day ran outside and saw people running toward the mining pit. Smoke was rising from the lower levels, and he could hear the sound of energy weapons firing. "What is happening?" he asked a passing worker. "They found it," the worker said breathlessly. "The beast is trapped in the old mining shaft, but it is." Fighting back? Day felt his heart stop. His friend was in terrible danger, and it was all his fault. If he had been braver, if he had told the truth about Nuri from the beginning, maybe none of this would have happened. He ran toward the lower levels, pushing past the security guards who tried to stop him. He had to get to Nuri before it was too late. The sound of weapons fire grew louder as he approached the mining shaft. Through the smoke and chaos, he could hear Blade shouting orders to his team. "It is cornered," Blade yelled. "Move in carefully. Do not let it escape." Day reached the entrance to the shaft and saw the hunting party surrounding a narrow tunnel. Inside, he could see flashes of blue light and hear a sound that broke his heart. Nuri was crying. Day pushed through the crowd of hunters and ran into the mining shaft. Behind him, he could hear Blade shouting for him to stop, but he did not care. His friend was hurt and scared, and nothing else mattered. He found Nuri pressed against the back wall of the tunnel, 3 of its tentacles badly burned by energy weapons. The creature's skin was flashing between red and blue, showing both pain and joy at seeing Day again. "Stay back," Day yelled to the hunting party. "You are making it worse," Engineer Kim Blade said, his weapon still raised. "Get away from that thing. It is dangerous." "No, it is not," Day said, kneeling beside his injured friend. "It is hurt and scared. Look at it. Really look at it." Nuri extended one of its uninjured tentacles toward Day. The gesture was gentle and trusting, nothing like the behavior of a wild beast. Some of the hunters lowered their weapons, confused by what they were seeing. "It knows you," said one of the Vorthok security officers. "How is that possible?" "'Cause I have been visiting it," Day said. "For weeks. It is not a monster. It is intelligent and peaceful. It has never tried to hurt anyone." "You have been meeting with this creature." Blade's voice was full of disbelief. "Are you insane?" "I was trying to understand it," Day said. "And I learned that it is not attacking our equipment. It is trying to fix it." "That is impossible," said Park Jun, who had arrived with the security team. "Look at the damage it has caused." "The damage happens because our systems are hurting something deeper," Day explained. "This creature is trying to protect its world, and we are destroying it without even knowing." As if to prove his point, Nuri slowly moved to one of the tunnel walls and pressed its tentacles against the rock. The stone began to glow, revealing the crystal network that lay beneath. The assembled hunters gasped at the sight. "What is that?" asked Lightbringer. "It is a living system," Day said. "It connects the entire planet. Our mining operations are disrupting it, and this creature has been trying to repair the damage." "Even if that is true," Blade said, "it does not change the fact that this thing has been terrorizing our workers." "Because you were terrorizing it first," Day replied. "It can sense emotions. When you approach it with fear and hatred, it reflects those feelings back at you. But when you approach with kindness..." He gently touched one of Nuri's tentacles, and the creature's skin pulsed with warm, peaceful colors. The hunters watched in amazement as Nuri responded to Day's touch. The creature's aggressive posture relaxed, and it began to communicate through the patterns of light under its skin. "It is trying to tell us something," Lightbringer said, her own glow brightening with excitement. "Those light patterns are not random. They are a language." "What is it saying?" asked the Vorthok officer. Day watched the patterns carefully, remembering what he had learned during his visits with Nuri. "It is saying that it wants to help us. It wants to show us how to work with the planet instead of against it." "This madness," Park Jun said. "Even if the creature is intelligent, we cannot trust it. It is too dangerous." "It's the only danger," said a new voice, "is our own ignorance." Everyone turned to see Choi Yuna, the colony's botanist, entering the tunnel. She was carrying a tablet computer and had an excited expression on her face. "I have been studying the plant samples that Engineer Kim brought me," she said. "The ones that glow with blue light. They are not just plants. They're part of a vast biological network that regulates the planet's atmosphere and geological stability." "What does that mean?" asked Crystallix, who had just arrived with more security officers. It means that this creature is not just protecting its home, Yuna explained. It is protecting the system that keeps this entire planet alive, and our mining operations are destroying that system. She showed her tablet to the group. On the screen was a complex diagram showing the connections between the crystal network and the planet's ecosystem. Look at these readings, she said. Time we dig deeper or extract more minerals, the network becomes more unstable. The atmospheric processors fail because the planet's natural air filtration system is being damaged. And this creature has been trying to fix it, Day added. That is why it only comes out at night. It is working while we sleep, trying to repair the damage we caused during the day. Nuri seemed to understand that the humans were finally beginning to comprehend its purpose. The creature moved to another section of the wall and pressed its tentacles against the rock. This time, the entire tunnel began to glow with soft light, revealing an intricate network of crystals and organic structures. It is beautiful, Lightbringer whispered. It is more than beautiful, Yuna said. It is essential. Without this network, the planet would become uninhabitable within months. The atmosphere would become toxic, and the ground would become unstable. Hello. What are you saying? Crystallix asked. We should shut down the mining operation. I'm saying that we need to work with this creature, Day said. It understands the planet better than we do. It can show us how to extract the minerals we need without destroying the ecosystem. Work with a beast? Blade laughed. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. It is not a beast, Day said firmly. It is a guardian. It has been trying to save us from our own mistakes. As if to demonstrate its intelligence, Nuri moved to a section of damaged mining equipment and touched it with one of its tentacles. The machine, which had been broken for weeks, suddenly came to life. But instead of operating normally, it began to work in harmony with the crystal network, extracting minerals without damaging the surrounding structures. Incredible, Yuna breathed. It is showing us how to mine sustainably. This changes everything, Crystallix said slowly. If what you say is true, then we have been approaching this planet all wrong. There is only one way to find out for sure, Day said. He looked at Nuri, who was watching the group with its intelligent eyes. We need to trust each other. We need to work together. Nuri extended one of its tentacles toward Crystallix. The administrator hesitated for a moment, then slowly reached out and touched the creature's appendage. Immediately, his crystal body began to glow with the same blue light as Nuri's skin. I can feel it, Crystallix said in amazement. I can sense. The network. It is like the planet is alive. One by one, the other aliens approached Nuri and made contact. Each of them experienced the same revelation, feeling the planet's living systems through the creature's empathic abilities. We have made a terrible mistake, Lightbringer said, her glow dimming with shame. We called it a cursed beast, but it was trying to save us all along. So what happens now? Asked Park Jun. Day looked at his friend, who was still injured but no longer afraid. Now we learn. We work together. We find a way to coexist with this planet instead of just taking from it. Nuri's skin pulsed with warm colors, and for the first time since arriving at the colony, Day heard something he had never heard before. The creature was not howling in pain or loneliness. It was singing with joy, but their celebration was cut short by a new sound. Deep, rumbling noises were coming from below, and the ground beneath their feet began to shake. What is that? Blade asked. Yuna looked at her tablet and her face went pale. The mining operation has destabilized a major junction in the network. There is going to be a massive seismic event. How long do we have? Crystallix asked. Minutes, Yuna said. Maybe less. The planet was about to tear itself apart, and only Nuri knew how to stop it. The ground shook violently, and pieces of rock began falling from the tunnel ceiling. Emergency alarms blared throughout the colony as the seismic activity intensified. Through the crystal network, everyone could see the damage spreading like cracks in broken glass. The entire northern section is collapsing, Yuna shouted over the noise. If we cannot stabilize the network, the whole planet will become uninhabitable. Nuri's skin flashed with urgent red patterns as it communicated with the crystal network. The creature was trying to repair the damage, but its injuries from the hunting party made it weak. Its tentacles trembled with effort as it pressed them against the glowing walls. "It is not strong enough," Day said, watching his friend struggle. "It needs help." "What kind of help?" Christelix asked. "More of its kind," Day replied. "There have to be others like Nuri. They must be hiding somewhere, afraid to come out because of how we treated this one." Nuri seemed to understand what Day was saying. The creature moved to the center of the tunnel and began to glow more brightly than anyone had ever seen. Its light pulsed in complex patterns, sending a message through the crystal network. "It is calling to them," Lightbringer said, her own glow responding to Nuri's signals. "It is telling them that it is safe to come out." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from the deeper tunnels came an answering glow, and another, and another. "They are coming," Una whispered. The first of Nuri's kind emerged from a side tunnel. It was smaller than Nuri, with silver patterns under its dark skin. Behind it came another, then another. Within minutes, a dozen of the creatures had gathered in the tunnel. "There are so many of them," Blade said, his weapon lowered. "They have been living here all along?" The creatures communicated with each other through rapid light patterns, and Day could sense the urgency in their movements. They were discussing the crisis, deciding how to respond. "They are afraid," Day realized. "They do not trust us." "After what we did to their friend," Crystalix said, his crystal body dim with shame, "can we blame them?" To groups, its skin pulsing with calming colors. It was trying to bridge the gap between its own kind and the colonists, but the other creatures remained wary. "We need to show them that we have changed," Day said, "that we understand now." He walked slowly toward the nearest creature, keeping his hands visible and his movements calm. "We are sorry," he said. "We made mistakes. We want to learn. We want to help." The creature watched him carefully, its multiple eyes studying his face. Then, tentatively, it extended one of its appendages toward him. Day reached out and gently touched it. The moment their skin made contact, Day felt the creature's emotions flood through him. Fear, sadness, and anger, but also hope. The creature could sense his sincerity, his genuine desire to make things right. "I understand," Day said softly. "We hurt your home, hurt your friend, but we want to fix it. Will you help us?" The creature's skin pulsed with thoughtful colors. Then it turned to the others and communicated rapidly. One by one, the other creatures began to approach the colonists. "They are willing to try," Lightbringer said as one of the creatures touched her glowing form. "But they need to know that we are serious about change." "What do they want from us?" Crystalix asked. "Partnership," Day said. "Not just for this crisis, but for the future. They want to be part of our colony, not just victims of it." The ground shook again, more violently this time. Through the crystal network, they could see that the damage was spreading faster. "We need to act now," Una said. "The seismic activity is accelerating." Nuri and the other creatures moved to different points along the tunnel walls. Pressing their tentacles against the crystal network, their combined efforts were stronger than Nuri's alone, but it was still not enough. "The damage is too extensive." One of the creatures communicated through light patterns that Lightbringer translated. "The network needs more power to repair itself." "What kind of power?" Day asked. "Emotional energy," Lightbringer explained. "These creatures feed on positive emotions, love, friendship, hope. The stronger the bond between different species, the more power they can channel. Then we need to work together," Day said. "All of us. It's not just the creatures, but every species in the colony." Crystalix immediately activated the colony's communication system. "All workers report to the lower levels immediately. This is not a drill. We need everyone's help to save the planet." Within minutes, the tunnel was filled with colonists from every species. Vorthok, Scalith, Luminari, and humans all crowded into the space, watching nervously as the creatures worked to stabilize the network. "I know this seems strange," Day addressed the crowd, "but these creatures are not our enemies. They are the guardians of this planet, and they have been trying to protect us. Now we need to protect them." "What do you want us to do?" asked one of the human technicians. "Form connections," they said. "Touch the creatures. Let them feel your emotions. Show them that you are not afraid, that you want to be friends. It started slowly. Few brave workers stepped forward and made contact with the creatures. But as they felt the empathic connection, their fear melted away. They began to understand what the creatures were really like: peaceful, intelligent beings who wanted nothing more than to live in harmony with their world. Soon more colonists were joining in. The tunnel filled with soft light as the creatures' skin responded to the positive emotions flowing through the network. The combined power of friendship and understanding began to heal the damaged crystal formations. "It is working," Yuna said, watching her scanner readings. "The seismic activity is decreasing." But the real breakthrough came when Park Jun, who had been standing at the back of the crowd, slowly approached Nuri. The mining foreman had been the most suspicious of the creatures, the most resistant to change. "I am sorry," he said to Nuri. "I was wrong about you, about all of you." When he touched Nuri's tentacle, the creature's skin blazed with brilliant blue light. The emotion that flowed through the network was not just friendship, but forgiveness. The power surge was so strong that it repaired the most damaged sections of the crystal network in seconds. "The planet is stabilizing," Yuna announced. "The crisis is over." But something even more amazing was happening. The connection between the different species was growing stronger. Through the creatures' empathic abilities, the colonists were beginning to understand each other on a deeper level. "This is incredible," Crystallic said, his crystal body glowing with new patterns. "I can feel what everyone is feeling. We are all connected. This is how it should be," Nuri communicated through the network. Not just different species living on the same world, but truly sharing it. In the days that followed, the colony was transformed. The mining operation was redesigned to work with the planet's natural systems instead of against them. The creatures emerged from hiding to become full members of the community, their knowledge helping the colonists understand their new world. Day found himself appointed as the first interspecies ambassador, helping to translate between the different cultures and ways of thinking. But his most important role was simply being Nuri's friend. "You saved us all," he told the creature one evening as they sat together watching the sunset. 3 moons were rising over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. "We saved each other," Nuri replied, through the empathic link they now shared. "That is what friends do." The colony had learned an important lesson. Fear and misunderstanding could turn even the most peaceful being into a monster.
But friendship
And trust could transform enemies into allies, strangers into family. They'd called it a cursed beast, but the human had called it friend. And in the end, that simple act of kindness had saved 2 worlds, the planet that was Nuri's home, and the community that had become the home of so many different species. The crystal network hummed with contentment, its light pulsing gently. Through the tunnels and caverns, the planet was healing, and so were the people who lived on it. The future looked bright, filled with the promise of cooperation and understanding between all the children of the stars. And at the heart of it all was a friendship that had started with a human who chose to see beyond fear, and a creature who chose to trust despite every reason not to. They had shown everyone that the greatest power in the universe was not technology or weapons, but the simple decision to care for one another. The story of the cursed beast. And the human who called it friend became legend throughout the galaxy. But for those who lived it, it was simply the beginning of a new way of life, where differences were celebrated and friendship knew no boundaries. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not their technology or their resilience, but their ability to look at the unknown and see not a threat, but a potential friend. And in a universe full of wonders and terrors, that gift was more precious than any mineral that could be mined from the depths of a distant world.